There is a kind of man that most people cannot explain. He sits in a room and says very little. He doesn't compete for attention. He doesn't react when he's tested. He doesn't flinch when he's threatened. And somehow, without doing any of the things the world says you must do to succeed, people move around him differently. They're careful with him. They're curious about him. They don't fully understand why. But you will, after this. Most people spend their entire lives chasing approval, chasing status, chasing the next thing that will finally make them feel like enough. And in that chase, they become readable, predictable, easy to use. Because want is a leash. The moment someone sees what you need, they own you. They can pull the leash tighter whenever they choose. Give you just enough to keep you moving toward them. Withhold just enough to keep you desperate. This is not manipulation theory. This is just how people work. And the man who wants nothing? He cuts the leash entirely. Understand this first truth. Desire is not weakness. Hunger is not weakness. But visible desire, the kind you wear on your face, the kind you announce to people who haven't earned the right to know it, that is a different thing entirely. That is a map handed to your enemies. When you tell someone what you want, you have just given them a tool they will eventually use against you. Not because people are evil, because people are human. And humans, under pressure, use every tool available to them. The man who conceals his desire does not cease to want things. He simply stops showing it, and in doing so, he removes the only leverage anyone ever had over him. The most dangerous person in any room is not the one who wants the most. It is the one you cannot buy. Think about the last time you wanted something from someone, really wanted it. Did you feel how it changed you? How your sentences became careful? How you read their expressions for signals? How you adjusted your behavior slightly, almost unconsciously, to increase the odds of getting what you wanted? That's not weakness. That's just what want does to a person. Now imagine someone who doesn't do that. Someone who walks into the same room and genuinely does not need anything from you. Not your validation, not your resources, not your approval, not even your company. They are simply there, or they are not. The effect is immediate. The room adjusts to them, not the other way around. Now here is the truth most people are not prepared to hear. You have been trained, carefully, systematically from childhood, to chase external confirmation, to measure your worth through other people's eyes, to feel successful only when someone else says you are, to feel safe only when someone else approves of you. This training was not an accident. A person who needs approval is an obedient person. They are easy to motivate, easy to control, easy to redirect. Give them praise and they follow. Withhold it and they comply. Most of society runs on this mechanism. Your school ran on it. Your workplace runs on it. Many of your relationships run on it. The man who wants nothing has simply stopped participating in the mechanism. He validated himself. He decided, at some point, usually in private, usually in silence, that the final judge of his choices would be himself, not the audience, not the crowd, not the person he once needed to impress, just himself. And that decision changed everything. People often confuse this with coldness. It is not coldness. The man who wants nothing is not numb. He is not emotionally dead. He does not lack ambition or drive or the capacity to care. What he lacks is need. the specific, desperate flavor of wanting that makes a man behave against his own interest just to maintain someone else's approval. He can walk away from a negotiation without closing it. He can leave a room without explaining why. He can disagree without softening the disagreement to protect someone's feelings. Not because he is cruel, because he is free. The second truth is harder. Most of what you call confidence is performance. And most of what you call desire is actually fear wearing a different mask. You don't chase approval because you genuinely need it. You chase it because some part of you believes, deeply, quietly, that without it, you are not safe. That belief is the real prison, not the people around you, not the circumstances. The belief itself. The man who wants nothing has not simply disciplined his desires. He has questioned the fear underneath them. He has looked at the belief that his worth depends on external validation and decided slowly and usually painfully that the belief was false. That moment of deciding is the real transformation. Everything else follows from it. Watch what happens to someone who stops needing approval. They stop over-explaining. When you don't need someone to understand your decision, you stop giving 3-paragraph justifications for simple choices. You say what you mean. You let it land. You move on. They stop performing their effort. When you don't need applause, you stop announcing the work. You stop posting the late nights and the struggle and the grind. You just work. And then you show up with results. And that quiet arrival, unannounced, unexplained, carries a different kind of authority than any amount of public effort ever could. They stop reacting visibly. When you have nothing to protect, when your self-worth isn't sitting on the table waiting to be knocked off, provocations stop landing. Someone tries to destabilize you, and what they find instead of a reaction is stillness. Not coldness, stillness. And stillness, in a world trained to expect reactions, is absolutely disorienting to anyone who wanted to use you. Ask yourself something. How many decisions have you made in the last month that were shaped by what someone else might think? Not the big decisions, the small ones, the quiet daily ones. The word you swallowed because it might be received badly. The path you didn't take because it needed too much explaining. The version of yourself you quietly suppressed because the room wasn't ready for it. That is the cost of the leash, paid in small amounts, every day, over years. The man who wants nothing stopped paying that cost, not because he is exceptional, not because he has no fear, but because he looked at the cost clearly and decided it was too high. There is a thing that happens when you stop wanting approval from a specific person. They start wanting yours. This is not a trick. This is not a manipulation strategy. This is simply how attention flows. We are drawn to things that are not drawn to us. We pursue what does not pursue us. We become curious about what does not seem curious about us. The man who wants nothing becomes, almost effortlessly, the most interesting person in many rooms. Not because he performs interesting, because he doesn't perform at all. And in a world full of performers, in a world where almost every person you meet is doing something to make you see them in a particular way, the one who simply is becomes impossible to ignore. The third truth. This is not something you achieve once and keep forever. The pull towards seeking approval is old. It is wired deep. Even people who understand this completely will feel it return. Sometimes at inconvenient moments. Sometimes in relationships where they are vulnerable. Sometimes at 3 in the morning when the silence gets too loud. The difference is not the absence of the pull. The difference is what you do when you feel it. The man who wants nothing feels the pull and lets it pass. He observes it. He does not obey it. He does not shame himself for feeling it. He just doesn't act on it. That is the practice, not perfection, practice. And the gap between him and most people is not intelligence. It is not talent. It is not circumstance. It is simply the number of times he has chosen, quietly and without announcement, not to chase. What you have just heard is not the whole picture. Because there is a version of this, a darker version, a more precise version, that most people never reach. The man who wants nothing is the beginning. But there is something that comes after him, something that operates at a level most people cannot see. And once you understand what that is, the way you read every room you walk into will change permanently. That is what comes next.